fun. This is the uncrating and assembly of this Woodland Mills 130 Max. Poof, you're right. So, overall quality, the pan view that I just showed you there, that's everything that comes in the 10'5" length HM130 Max cut kit that they sell you. That's everything. All those additional parts I pulled off the top, those are all add-ons that I bought. Some of them were just spare parts and stuff. Those are off to the side. We'll get to those at the end of the video. My initial quality, the initial quality and the crating and the quality of the parts and all that stuff is better than I was expecting, so that's good. That's really good. The welds on it they're commercial welds. They're good. They're great. They did exactly what they needed to do. They have good tie-in. They're not the prettiest welds in the world, but they're like an industrial, like farm type weld. So they're great, and they did good so far on everything. I didn't see anything that stood out like, oh man, that's a bad weld. You know, how did that make it through QA? I saw nothing like that, and I didn't see any weld repairs, which stand out like sore thumbs to me. So whoever's doing the welding and stuff for them, they're doing a good job. They're not having to go back and fix things or anything like that. So that's good. The coatings are way better than I was expecting. And I'm not trying to mock Woodland, but the color online, to me, my impression from that color, it looked cheap. It made me really question whether I wanted this one, because I don't know why, but for some reason that color just came across cheap. I don't know if it's because I'm relating it to other products that I've seen before or what. And so I'm just pointing that out to you. It doesn't look cheap in person, and the quality is there, and the parts are very heavy duty, very thick materials. Nothing on this thing was chintzy. Nothing was chintzy. So far, we'll put it together. I don't expect we're going to find anything that's chintzy or junky. It's very, very well built, very well thought out. The crating was well thought out. All right, so step one is basically step three. The first two steps are pulling the, uncrating it, and the tools you need to put it together. So the way I'm doing it here, if I were to do it again, so I'm going to advise you to do it this way, put all the feet on the track first, set it all up, just set it together. You don't need bolts or anything. Get it up and then start putting your bolts in. I ended up doing that later after I was trying to do it just right on the ground and having to lift it up to put the nuts and stuff in, or the bolts in. So anyway, start by putting it on the feet, and then work your way around and start bolting stuff together. Then when you start squaring it up, start in the middle and work your way out in either direction. So you're holding 37 inches outside to outside dimension on those channel angle irons. And you that's very critical. You need that 37 is the most critical part of the whole thing. But start in the center, make it real square there, and then work your way out in both directions. That's not what I did. That's what I wish I would have done. So. All right, so what you just saw me put in was those log clamps. It comes with 2 of these, and I bought an additional 2, but it turns out it's pretty much worthless to buy the additional 2. You'll install the 2 that come with it in between the 3 bunks there that have the stops on them. I put the additional 2 I bought on the outside thinking that would be helpful, and now that I really think about it, it's not going to be helpful because there's a stop there, but there's no stop on the end bunk. So if I tried to clamp there, it would just turn the log. So it's really useless there. So don't bother with that. Just get the original 2 if you're not gonna get additional bed length. I do plan on buying additional bed length later, so I will use those clamps, but for now, I don't really think they're gonna be too helpful. There's not really, it doesn't really say which way you put these in. I put the welded end. This one's welded, the other one, that bracket is just floating, it has a hole in it that the pipe slides in. I put the welded one on the opposite side of the stop. It really wouldn't matter probably either way. And then you can't screw up on these either. You want them so that they're angled in towards the log. And if it's angled out, then all you really have to do, and I'll show you on this one, is flip it over like this. So that's the correct way, and that's the wrong way. So it really doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about putting those on the right way or the wrong way. It'll work either way. You just may have to flip it over like that. So that's those. So yeah, don't buy 2 additional. The 2 that come with it are sufficient. So putting these tubes in, I don't know if we caught that or not. I just realized the battery was dead. So you're supposed to put this cap in this hole and then slide it through, and this will guide it through the plastic bushings there. I guess I don't follow instructions well. I didn't do that. This end is capped off and it's really nice and round. So I just pushed them through from this way. And it worked just fine. I didn't use those. You're supposed to put them in, put the tube in, then take them out. I just pushed the tubes in from the other way. And then my initial instinct is these holes on that side have big burrs on them. That's why I didn't want to push them through from that direction to begin with. So that's why I pushed them through from this way. And then it turns out we are supposed to push them through from that way. You just use those, push them through, take them out. I didn't do that. I just pushed them in from this way. I don't see why you would need these to do it that way. So Woodland, if you're watching, save some money. Do that over a bunch of them. I don't think you need to do that. But maybe later we'll see why we would have to. All right, so this is step 5. Step 3 and 4 were the first part that you just watched. Step 5 is putting this whole A-frame assembly together that you're watching me do here, even sliding those tubes through as part of it too. So my advice on this one is don't tighten a single thing. I did, and I ended up having to loosen it back up again. Everything fits really, really good as long as you leave everything loose. There's a lot of parts in this step, but it's all really, really easy. The instructions are really good on it. And then my other thing to point out is make sure the saw is all the way bottomed down against those A-frames like you saw me do before you stand it up. 1, it'll make it easier to stand up, and 2, if you don't, the saw will come crashing down all the way to the bottom as soon as you do stand it up. All right, so there's no more numbers on the steps. I just realized in the manual. So water tank, it fits okay. I had to spread the tabs a little bit. That's because they chose to design it so that the tank spans over the tabs instead of being to the left of the tabs or the right of the tabs. And the problem with designing things that way is when you go to put it together, the thickness of the paint twice now added up, so now you have to kind of spread the tank a little bit to fit over it. Had they went to the left or the right of the tabs in their design, the thickness of the paint wouldn't have mattered because it'll just kind of offset the tank one way or the other, the thickness of the paint. But that's okay. It worked. I got it on there. Now we're on to the battery. Optional step. You don't need a battery on this thing. You can pull start it. It has directions for it either way. Really simple to do. Really good directions on that as well. All right, now we just put on the vibration meter, and that's an hour meter that runs off vibration, and you have to cut the little loop wire on that for it to start counting, and then it just feels the machine vibrating from the engine running, and that's how it keeps track of hours. And then we're going to put on the lifting mechanism and running the cables. Those are 2 separate steps. Really easy, really good direction on those. It went flawlessly. They did a really good job on those. My only word of advice on all the pulleys and wheels on this thing, there's an E-clip on one side of the bearing going into the wheel or the pulley.
You always have to make sure that E-clip is towards the spacer and not towards the washer. The washer will actually hit the E-clip and push it into the bearing. So you gotta watch for that when you're putting it together. They stack them up when they ship them. The way you get them, they stack them up right. You have to separate all that stuff and put it together on the machine, and that's where you could accidentally flip that pulley over and squish that E-clip. So just watch out for that when you're assembling. And on these cables, don't make them tight yet. Just make them kind of relatively equal to the tautness, but leave them loose. You're going to adjust those once you set it on the frame. Okay, so now we're doing the height gauge. Just using a square to make sure it's square on the frame there, or on the basically the guard for the bandsaw blade. I just made it square, and then the scales on it, it gives you 2 scales, but each scale has 2 different increments. Some of them take kerf away. You'll have to read the instructions on that so that you can see which scale you'll want to use for which type of board you're cutting. And now we did the throttle and the handle, and you can install that handle 2 different ways. If you're putting it on a trailer, you'll install it pointing down so that it's at a good height for you. If you're not installing it on a trailer, it'll be going up like the way we're doing it. And then there's good direction on that. You got to watch the washer location and everything on that. It's a little bit tricky to put that together, just because it's hard getting the washers in and getting the screws through it and everything. And then for adjustment, you got to make sure that you're flooring it all the way without over flooring it. So on that one, it's really helpful to have a friend pull it to the floor so that you can fully floor it, so that you can watch the adjustment on it down on the carburetor side. There's a valve that gets hit, and that does the coolant. That's what I'm touching right there. That turns the coolant on to the blade when you pull the throttle all the way, and then there's a throttle stop there in behind that that stops the throttle from being over pulled. And so I just made sure that you could pull it all the way without over pulling it on there before I adjusted it. Now I'm just using the tractor to pull it up on the frame. There's also directions on doing this step by hand, basically feeding it on the end of the track. You'd put this up at the end of the track and then tilt it back and set it on there and then lift it up. There's directions for doing it that way. It was easier for us just to drop it on the frame with the tractor, obviously. Okay, so now in the manual it has you put on the lower door latches. This step should be last. It shouldn't be right now. That way you could have had this the bandsaw lifted up to do this. It makes it very difficult to do it while it's down and you're putting the latches in between the black plates. We did it anyway. It wasn't very. It wasn't hard, but it wasn't. It could have been a lot easier. It would have been a lot easier to do this step last. Alright, so now here's just a walk around of it, totally assembled. Really, really good. There is one part and a handle I'll show you here in just a little bit that I didn't put on. It's just for adjusting the guide or sliding the guide in and out for the blade. And then this is a toolbox that I'm showing you right there. It actually replaces the bunk it's sitting on. It bolts in with the same 2 bolts. It does use one hole differently, but it just bolts on in replacement of it. That's where you would put it on there. That's the bunk you most likely will never actually use as a bunk, but you may, and it is the same height as a bunk when it's closed, so it would work as a bunk. But so far so good, really liking this machine. All right, and here is an accessory. This is the what they call a toe board. And so what this would do is allow you to angle the log once it's installed. So you'd square off your log to the lumber size you wanted. Then you would jack it up on this edge where the jack is. That's on a trolley. It rolls back and forth in that channel. And then you jack up this edge, letting it pivot in the corner between the stop and the bunk on the other side there. Jack it up using an angle finder on top of your board. Get the angle you want. Clamp it. Make your cut. Lower the jack down. Clamp it again. Make your cut, and you just go back and forth down that way, and that would make like a shingle shaped type, like a siding or a toe board, if that's what you needed to do. Pretty cool little gadget. Really nicely made. Okay, so now I'm putting on the cover. This cover is really nicely made. It's super heavy vinyl, really heavy vinyl. So it pretty good. It fits it decently well. I put it on backwards at first, and then I had to kind of spin it around. I'm being really careful there because the scale, the corner of it is definitely going to tear through that thing. It wouldn't last. The first windstorm, it would have a hole in it. So we need to make a foam cover that we would put on the top of that scale before you put this cover on, so that doesn't happen. That's the only spot I see that stands out that it would tear through. You can see it kind of poking up there right now on the left side of the machine. Okay, this is spare parts kit 2550. It's just bearings. These are the guides for that keep the blade tight where it needs to be. Those will wear out over time, and then an extra belt, and then another belt. That's all that's in the spare parts kit. Probably nice to have because you really don't want to be waiting on that if you're down because you lost one of those things.